Yeah, hey everybody, Dr. Meri Crowley for Now is the Time. And I've got an amazing, guest in my program today, Bazzel Baz, a recovery of children ARC. They literally are going all over America and the world to recovery and rescue children. It's an epidemic in this country, and you're going to really have ears to hear really what's going on and really take action of what you can do to make a difference. But before we do that today's program is sponsored by QE Strong. If you have pain or allergies in your body, you're really going to want to get this product. Let's roll that commercial, please.
As our audience knows, we don't promote anything unless it works. I fell off a ladder, fell down on my leg, opened it up, and there was great pain in it. So I used the patch, and immediately it went away. No pain.
Backed by scientific research and rigorous lab testing, even people who have suffered for decades are getting amazing results. Quantum energy is frequencies that connect to your body's energy system. Only QE Strong encodes key intentions and Bible verses about pain relief onto the small patch. You simply place it on your body each day. And with a bonus prayer guide, read aloud a positive intention and 1 or 2 Bible verses about pain relief each day. This unique yet potent multisensory approach is powerful, and it works. The patch provides the touch, and the included prayer guide uses your sight, speech, and hearing to utilize the senses God gave you. That's the quantum effect. Are you ready to experience the quantum effect? Go to QEpain.com/Meri.
Yeah, if you go to QEpain.com, put my promo code Meri, MERI, right in the middle of America, you'll get a significant discount, or you can click on the link below. Anyway, Boz, good to see you again. Last time I saw you, I think you were up at the event at Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City for Rev 17 in June. So it seems like things have really been taken off for you guys. You are on location somewhere right now. So, Boz, it seems like this has become an epidemic. What's been going on, Boz? And kind of explain for my viewers. You had been former CIA. You had been, working in the military. Kind of give a little background of your history.
Yeah, thank you, Meri. It's good to see you too. Citadel graduate, former captain, United States Marine Corps, former CIA Special Operations Ground Branch and Maritime Branch, and then left the agency in '96 to complete my time with the Association for the Recovery of Children, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization of former intelligence, military, and law enforcement officers who are dedicated to the recovery of missing, exploited, and sex trafficked American children. So we do this at no cost to the custodial guardians and with no paycheck in our pocket. And we're blessed, and God's been really good to us to have a 100% success rate in that over the last 34 years, every child we've gone after, we've brought home. So we work and we stay in the trenches, so to speak, when it comes to this issue of missing, exploited, and sex trafficked American children. So, to answer your question, since the Biden administration decided to leave the border open, we had such an influx of children, both UACs, undocumented alien children, and prior to that we had, and these numbers fluctuate, but close to 438,000 American children missing. Most recently, Tom Homan made a statement that ICE had managed to collect 160,000 of the UACs, which I'm so grateful for. But we still have a couple of questions that we're asking, like, where did those kids go after you rescue them, and also what's happened to the 438,000 American children that were missing prior to that. So we kind of have, it's almost like a split mission. You've got ICE going after UACs, but most of the people that are going after the American children are still organizations like ourselves, NGOs, non-government organizations that have been doing this for a while and see that as a priority. It's what's interesting is I just heard somebody voice their opinion actually yesterday saying, look, we just don't like the direction the country's going in. And it's like, we're not going in a direction. What we're trying to do is trying to pull back from the place the Biden administration put us, so, it's all cleanup. It's all cleanup of corruption. It's all cleanup of children that were being sold. As far as believe it or not, Mary, as far as the Ukraine, from whistleblowers who work for MVM and Catholic Charities. And it's like, why are we sending UACs to Ukraine? We're trying to get kids out of the war zone, and they're shipping them back in. So we have some thoughts on that. I mean, Anthony Fauci is still over there doing his thing. We know that. We have intel reports on that. There's a couple of bio labs that are still out there. And my theory is, what's the best way to test your product? You test it on kids or people. So, so that's the direction we lean into when we think about what is actually happening to them. On our front here in America, if you take the UACs, the 500,000 that were brought in, and it's a pretty round number. I'm sure there were more or less. And then the American kids that we're already missing, you're up to about 1 million kids that we don't see walking on the streets. So the question is, where are they? So they're used in child pornography, which is still a flourishing trade that hasn't been shut down, or where are they when it comes to labor traffic using children, or organ harvesting, or satanic cult rituals, and how many basements around America are holding those kids? I mean, it is just a plethora of challenges when it comes to not only understanding the AO, the area of operation, but having a really in-depth knowledge of the criminal enterprise that is involved in using children as a commodity. And we can tell you this for a fact now. We know now who the head of the snake is for almost all global child sex trafficking. And they are people that most of America knows who they are. They were influencers that retired but did not retire. And they are still involved with the deep state. And it's really funny about that, Mary, when I used to hear that term way back in the day, because I worked on the Blacklist, and it was all about deep state activities, so to speak.
Well, when you say Blacklist, that was the hit movie, the hit television show, the Blacklist with James Spader, that was on for several seasons, and you actually played yourself on that show.
Yeah, I co-starred on that for 4 seasons, which was so grateful. Everybody on the show I had a great time. James Spader, an amazing actor. It was a very, very kind gentleman. And Michael Watkins, who was executive producer, was just phenomenal as well. But as I was participating in that, of course, what happened is I never realized that I would actually get involved in real serious deep state activities and corruption that is trying to be cleaned up by 47 by the president of the United States, now President Trump. Excuse me. And being involved also in national security issues that at one time was just a part of my CIA career. So what has happened is child sex trafficking has cross-pollinated with drugs, cartel, national security, terrorism. I mean, the list goes on. It's all part of a very similar business model where there's a lot of money laundering and there's no accountability. And I think that's the frustration for most Americans that I talk with daily when they're asking questions about accountability. MVM hasn't been held accountable for distributing children all across America. Catholic Charities hasn't been held accountable for the billions of dollars they made trafficking children across the county. Biden and Harris and that administration have not been held accountable for child trafficking across America. It was the largest child trafficking operation in the history of our country, which was not only treasonous, but it was illegal. And yet, if you and I, Meri, were to have done that, even with one child, we'd go to prison or go to jail. And yet there's no accountability. So while 47 is doing a great job, and I know his heart is really inundated with things just like this, children, what's happening to them. I know he cares about that. As does General Flynn, Mary Flynn O'Neill, who run America's Future, that spearhead a lot of activity up there in Washington for the sake of protecting children. The job's still not getting done. I wish the president would just say, Boz, I want you to be the czar of the trafficking czar. I'd pretty much get it cleaned up in a real fast time. After being in the trenches for 34 years, you can come to the table and sit in front of the president and go, look, 34 years, I got some ideas here. and they worked before, I think they'll work here. So this is what this is what keeps us busy.
Well, Boz, I went over in 2017 to Thailand with a videographer, and I was doing a number of things over there for a documentary. And when I got back, I heard the Lord say to me, excuse me, I'm just getting over this cold. He said to me, I don't want you to do this about Thailand. I want you to show what's happening in America. And I don't think people understand the depth of depravity that is happening in our country. And really the fuel of this is what I've seen as pornography. Because if there was no buyers, if there was no purchasers, there'd be no need, there'd be no, children. And so a lot of people, when I did this film, I interviewed a lot of these girls, and all these girls, Boss, told me that every single one of the guys came with their phone and showed them what they wanted them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of these girls you're going to, many of them are trafficked. And so who are most of these people that you see? I know, like you said, it's deep state, it's high level people behind the scenes that you don't even know who they are. But there's also a lot of people in our country that just think that they're buying somebody that's willingly doing this. Why don't you explain to the men in particular that are watching what happens in particular with pornography?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. One of the things we start with is the fact that we're an over-sexualized society. And that in itself, for people that don't do the research to realize that people that are being trafficked, men and women, but a lot of women, no matter if they're 28 years old, it was somebody's granddaughter. It was somebody's daughter. And I haven't met one traffic victim nor one person in prostitution that has ever told me, I enjoy what I do and I made a choice on my own to do this. Almost everyone that is in child pornography, adult pornography, whatever, somewhere along the line, mostly when they were young, was groomed or recruited for trafficking and criminal sexual activity or whatever it may be. So you are exactly right. Pornography, I will tell most of the men out there that are listening, and the women too, because they, we're seeing it on both sides. When I look at child sex predators, it's both male and female now. Where in the old days, and when I say the old days, like 20 years ago, I was mostly seeing men involved in child sex trafficking or predatory acts. But if you're watching pornography or looking at pornography, you're part of the problem, because all of that is part of the same industry. The money goes in the hands of bad actors that do organ harvesting. They rape children. They do child pornography. They recruit. They transfer. They sell lives. It's all part of the same thing. And the bad thing about pornography, and I understand, as a man, I understand the lure to all of that, but it becomes an addiction that you cannot back out of easily. Today you're looking at a 28-year-old girl on a porn site, but then tomorrow you want it to be 22. And then the next day you want it to be 14. And then the next day you want it to be a 5-year-old. You're just always looking for something better, something younger, whatever it may be. And then your moral compass is off, and then the dark side, Satan, takes over from the very beginning, and it just takes you down a road that just destroys your soul. So that's not the way humans were meant to be treated in God's eyes, Meri, and you know that, and a lot of our audience knows that. So I always tell the men that I hopefully care, if you're a father and you have children, boys or girls, just ask yourself, would you want somebody to do those things to your kids? Now, believe it or not, and sadly enough, we are in a time in our world where there are some parents that actually molest their own kids. I'm dealing with a case like that right now in another state where got a 19-year-old boy who was ready to testify against his parents, who started molesting him and his brother like when they were kids, like 5 years old, and then trafficking them out, to do horrible things. So if you are a person of conscience and you're listening to this, put down the porn. Okay. Turn your heart back over to God. Find your way, because the world's opportunities are, while they might be shiny, generally end up in a bad way when it comes to your soul and your health and other things. It just takes you down a really dark road, and God can turn all of that around in your heart if you're willing to make a choice to follow those things that God has for you. So I always tell the men that I talk to, it's funny we're talking about this, Mary. I just had this conversation yesterday, and I said, and we were talking about men being emasculated, and I said, look, when we stop becoming men when we let other left wing liberal woke dirtbags tell us what a man's supposed to be like, instead of listening to what God said a man's supposed to be like. And I said, and we also stop being men when we quit being gentlemen, when we stop defending our family, when we, beat our wives, or don't care for our children, or get our heads stuck in pornography or drugs or alcohol, whatever it may be. We stop becoming real men. Real men are protectors. Real men are godly men. Real men care about their families. They love them, and they will give their life for them. No different than most real patriots actually will give their life for the country. So that's
Well,
a great question.
and that's why Hollywood, they really use the media. That's why God is having people take back the media. I'm in LA, I'm in Hollywood. I know you used to do a lot of things in Hollywood. You focused a lot more on rescuing and recovery of children at this point in your life. But, so many of these people in Hollywood, in some of these high levels in society, have bought into this. Oftentimes, as you know, they don't get to these levels of fame or power unless they bow to the demonic realm. And there's so many people in these high levels that are into the Luciferian, satanic types of stuff that you wouldn't believe. Most of the wealthiest people in the world are in this type of thing, because Satan says, I'll give you this power if you bow to me. But we're going to see that thing shift around. And what do you know about this in Hollywood? I went down the rabbit hole, and what I found is that most of the major stars, not all of them, but a lot of them have. I mean, the fact that Rob Reiner and his wife get their throats slit from ear to ear, I mean, that to me looked ritualistic to me.
Yeah. I don't think everybody who enters Hollywood understands that if you're going to get to the top, depending on what the avenue is to get you there, that there are going to be people that want to control you, so that it can make money for you and for mostly for them, and use you as a willful idiot, so to speak. So there are people that we have talked to in our Hollywood culture that have said, look, they were very, very open about this. They said, you're not going to get to the top unless you're willing to do A, B, and C. And then there's those other people that what happens is let's say the bad actors realize the value of an asset or a great actor or a great actress. And somewhere along the way, they'll get them to go to a party, whether it's a snuff party, or participate in something that seems very benign. Like, here, you're going to sleep with this 15-year-old. All right. Or they offer the 15-year-old, and then they film it, and then they say, hey, guess what? You just raped a minor. So you're going to go to prison. But guess what? We can fix that all for you. You're going to work for us the rest of your life in Hollywood. You're going to do what we tell you to do. You're going to play every role we tell you to play, whatever it may be. And you're going to go to this party, and you're going to associate with this. And it could be Illuminati. It could be it could be satanic. It could be, I mean, I don't, anything that particular controller or a person of influence that's directing your career is a part of. And it could be the gay community. It could be direct Satanism. It could be snuff parties. It could be drugs and alcohol. It could be, the list goes on and on and on. And they do kind of keep their promise, and you do go up the food chain. But once you're all up there, all the bad things you did to get there as a movie star, let's say, was it worth it? You have to ask yourself. Are you happy about that? And then we have the other thing, the old casting couch thing, and we're seeing more actors boldly standing up and saying, "Hey, when I was 9 years old and I played on this TV show, they raped me twice a week or sexually abused me, blah, blah, blah." So there's a boldness I'm starting to see because I think more of us are speaking out. And most of those people in Hollywood are saying, look, I don't care about this anymore. I care about my conscience. I care about my soul. People, I don't want this to happen to other children or other people. So it's kind of gone beyond the, okay, I'm a female, I'm 32, I want this part. Yeah, I'm going to sleep with the director kind of thing. And those things, as you and I both know, happened. They still happen. Things happen on the set that we don't ever hear about. But I will tell you, it's really interesting because on the show I was on, the Blacklist, I believe the previous showrunner was actually arrested for pedophilia before Michael Watkins took over. And of course, I think the show was kind of heading downhill as well. So yeah, there's this stuff, and Meri, it can be anywhere. It's not just Hollywood. It's the medical community. It's the religious community. I mean, it's everywhere. It doesn't mean that an organization in itself is bad. Like it doesn't. I don't think it means that Hollywood is bad, because you and I both have friends who are in Hollywood who are really good people, never participated in any of this, working really hard. But much to what you said, most of the people that are at the top of the food chain, how they got there is quite questionable.
Well, and in Silicon Valley too, we're seeing that, and so this is the thing. God is getting ready to turn everything around, I believe. We're in a transition period that people like you and me and many of you watching are standing up and doing something. Now, you were telling me that there's a lot of these, seems like 14-year-old kids that are missing, like a plethora of them. Why don't you, I know you can't go into detail, but let's give maybe a scenario, a basic scenario of one of the cases you might be working on, like how you get called when somebody gets snatched or they're missing, or what kind of things do you normally get involved with?
Yeah, case we had about 3 days ago actually took place in Chicago. Because we're so well known now after 34 years, and people know how to get in touch with us. Either law enforcement will call us, or people have direct access to our website, and the word just kind of has spread over the years. And this case was a 14-year-old that supposedly was lured away or ran away, 14-year-old girl. And almost in every case, we realize that kids are either running to something or they're running away from something. The majority of these children, their family life is horrible. It's just horrible. Maybe someone in the family has molested them already. Maybe someone is, watching porn and they think it's okay, or maybe they're not paying attention to what their kid is looking at on their computer every night, and they're slowly being recruited by someone else. And so these are the things that we deal with daily. It isn't that the white van can't drop by the park and grab a kid and run with them. That still happens. But the majority of these kids, because they have access to computers and phones, and parents are not providing enough overwatch, what happens is they become a target of opportunity for predators almost every day. Some get lured in going, hey, I'm a casting director. Here, come to this place and let's make you famous, or I'm going to make you famous with your music or whatever. That still happens as well. In this case, the 14-year-old was being influenced by a parent who was dealing in all kinds of quasi-pornographic content on their computer, and making their children aware of it, and kind of like it's okay. And so this child ran, and of course we were able, with the help of another amazing strategic partner in the Chicago area, were able to rescue that little girl within like 48 hours or so. So, and a lot of that a lot of help also comes um, with local police help also. And then I was just in Ocala, Florida, at an event, meeting with law enforcement and the mayor of Ocala. Fantastic guy who basically told me a story where when he tried to get his law enforcement involved earlier on in the year, nobody believed they had trafficking in their town. And then I think he said, and I don't want to misquote him, but he basically forced them to run a sting operation. And within that year, they rolled up like 73 or 75 child predators, people that were trying to seek to have sex with minors. So we get calls about that stuff as well, to join up and help them go get more predators or save more kids or whatever it may be. So most of the time, here's an interesting thing. Most people don't realize this, but in prison in California, I won't name the prison, but I know the stats accurate. I think about 92% of the death row inmates all came from foster care. So that's another issue we're dealing with, is foster care and the abuse of children in foster care. CPS, most people don't know this, is autonomous. No one can seem to touch them, and there's still levels of corruption in CPS that we're all going after. America's Future is going after it. Mary Flynn O'Neill's really hitting that hard from her location in Florida. So now you've got a system, so to speak, that's supposed to protect child protective services. And yet it's almost just the opposite. I hear stories. I just heard a story the beginning of this week from an adult who was taken to CPS when he was a little boy, brutally raped in CPS by CPS workers, not necessarily by other children, given all kinds of drugs. I mean, to just dumb him down. And eventually, he aged out and went on to his adulthood, but still with the same trauma, still with the same problems. So there's no oversight in a lot of places where there should be. And so this is just one of I'm exaggerating, but it's one of a billion things that we deal with when it comes to the abuse of children.
Well, also, what I've seen is there's also a lot of family court. There's family court issues where a lot of the judges are, it's a big pay to play scheme. I know Nancy Schaefer, if you remember her, there was a film that Stu Peters presented called These Little Ones. And, they talked about Nancy Schaefer. She was the state senator of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And she was looking.
She got killed. Somebody assassinated her. Yeah.
Well, they did. They actually had her husband, Bruce. They said he killed her. Then, he basically committed suicide is what they said. But
right.
I know many people that knew that couple, and they said there was no way he would have ever done that. It made it look like, it was like a murder-suicide, but they set it up. And so this is what's happening. These judges are being exposed. There's a lot of things that God is getting to the root of this. So, well, let's turn the corner. There's people watching go, this is all horrible. It's but see, every kid has an iPhone. And I know I interviewed, I don't know if you heard of Opal Singleton, Million Kids. I've worked with her out in California. There's 1 million kids missing in America every year, 1 million kids. And so she said a lot of them, are through the foster care system and the CPS. And so it's really bad. But every kid, she said a kid should not have a phone until they're like 12. But, most kids get a phone at what time would you say?
Oh my gosh. I've seen a kid in the back seat of a car with somebody we were running a PSD for, personal security detail. Our kid was like 4 years old and he had an iPad, which is just as bad as his phone. And the things that he was listening to was like stuff he was coming up with. It was like, why don't you take that away from your kid? I'm a big believer in common sense. First place, you got to tell me why you need a phone. Okay. If I had kids, I'd go, yeah, you'll get a phone when you're 18, when you need one. Okay. But I need to call you from school. go to the office and ask to use the phone and call me from the office. You're in a protective environment, or whatever it may be. Oh, well, you're on the bus. Have the bus driver call me if you have a problem, just stuff like that. Now, I understand there's some value to a certain degree, but with this technology, security and safety it outweighs, in my opinion, kids having it. And the deep state and people know that kids have it, and they can brainwash your kids every day, and they do every day. The attention span of kids that have phone is like, oh my gosh, a third of what you and I had growing up. We see everything around us, right? They don't see anything. You want to talk about a funny exercise. Just walk down a couple of blocks from a school when it gets out and kids are walking home on their phone like this. I could show you 30 or 40 kids I could grab and throw in a car, and they would never see me coming because they got their face right in here. They're not aware of their surroundings. And then what are they listening to? What's the content, and who are they talking to? And kids can unload an app when they get home and go, look, Mom, my phone's, I don't have anything bad on it. And they get in the bedroom and download the app again and start all over. So I think it's very unnecessary. I'm not saying it hasn't saved some lives, but if you're talking about the majority of children and having them grow up and grow up in a world that they need to pay attention to and not be influenced by bad actors, take their phone away from them.
Yeah, the phone's become a babysitter. I know my daughter, my grandson, she's a single mom, and I just see him on the phone. All I can say is I'm not the mom. You tell them certain things, but, we really need to pray right now. We need to see a great awakening, Boz. As we come to a close today, how can people get involved? I know you go around the country and you do these trainings. Why don't you explain some of the things you and your wife, Tina, do?
Yeah, thanks, Meri. We have a 6-day, very intense fight child trafficking equipping course. We only hold 6 of them a year. It is not an awareness course. It's teaching people about the AO, the area of operations, and what you can do as an American citizen to literally spot, assess, and go rescue a child, legally. So we needed to force multiply, have more people out there doing what we're doing. I was getting 5-6 resumes, and I still do, a week from people going, can we join ARC? And we just don't have the managerial, capability, so to speak, to manage 50,000 people that want to join us. So it's like, we're going to teach you to do what we do, and you're going to start your own NGO, non-government organization, and you're going to go in your community and you're going to save your kids. This is not a government problem. Don't wait for the government to fix this for you. It's not sitting in their backyard. It's not on the steps of the White House. It's in your backyard, and you're responsible for cutting your own grass, so to speak. So if you're a person of conscience and you care and you want to know what you can do about this, come to the course. We have 6 of them a year. If you go to recoveryofchildren.com, it'll give you the curriculum and tell you exactly how to sign up for a course and come join us. And almost every single class, we've trained up now after this class, we'll have trained over 1,000 people. And almost every single class, we get a call about a week later or 2 weeks later going, we just rescued this kid, So we know it works. We've been in the trenches longer than 34 years. I think that makes us probably the oldest running child rescue organization in America.
So that website again is, put it up on the screen, please, www.recoveryofchildren.org or .com. It's either one, right? You can go to.
.org will give you our website information about who we are. .com will take you to the training site and let you know what you can get involved in. If we're near your state or just fly to what a lot of people do, they just find a way and they get to wherever we are. So, yeah.
Well, Boz, it's a hard subject for people to wrap their mind around, just because I think people don't want to think there's people this evil or this corrupt. But really, it starts out like, how do you, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? How does a frog, in the tepid water, slowly turning it up, it eventually will be cooked. And that's what that's what demonic realm does, little by little. It's, sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a character. So it reaps a destiny eventually. Looking at the porn, that's what happens. They're trying to get kids addicted to porn at 8 years old.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what the average age of a kid that sees porn, usually around 8, 9 years old. It might be much earlier now. And so we need to see a great awakening in this country where the hearts of men and women will be changed. And the only one who can really change a heart is God.
Mhm.
And I believe we're at the cusp of that getting ready to happen. And, because you don't think, who would be ever attracted to a 5-year-old or a 2-year-old or even babies? But it gets into the heart of people that it's evil,
Mhm.
and only God can break that cycle. Why don't you tell me as we close, Boz, kind of a good story? I'm always about stories Jesus taught in parables. So people, when they hear a story, they actually see a visual picture in their mind, and that's why Hollywood is so important, because it's moving stories, motion pictures. And actually, God told me that greatest show on earth is going to come, and He said the greatest movies, the greatest music is getting ready to be rolled out. But at first, we have to expose the dark realm, the demonic realm that has captured, these areas, these 7 mountains of culture, including the mountain of arts and entertainment, the mountain of media, that we're going to take those back because Satan is prince of the power of the air. And so when you see a good story, it makes people like going, wow, that's amazing. Like the old John Wayne stories, where the good guy, wins and the bad guys go to jail. And tell us a good story, one that, that just maybe within the last few years, one of your better stories.
Oh my gosh, we got so many of them, Mary. I'll tell you, try to give you one that had, I mean, they all had good endings anytime a kid comes home. We had this is always a good one. It's one of my favorites. We had a little girl who was, her mom was in prison, hooked up with a Colombian narcotics guy, came back into a state in the United States, kidnapped her daughter, and took her to a foreign country. And so the family called me. We came down and set up a command center in their garage of all places, just on this other side of the border. And we negotiated with the bad guys, the kidnappers, who threatened to sell her into prostitution. She was 7. If the family didn't pay them $1 million. This family was middle class family. They didn't have $1 million. And to make things a little more complicated, local police would not work with the father because he had a criminal record, which I think when he was like 16, he failed to stop when law enforcement blue lights came on or something. Typical 16-year-old. They finally got him, and and now that's on his record because he was evading law enforcement or something. Anyway, he came to us through another strategic partner. I don't mind mentioning his name. He's a great guy named Lou Knott, who had an organization called Templar Titan, and said, we're not available. We can't go do this. Would you handle this and take it over? And we said, yeah, absolutely. We called up Department of State. At that time was being run by some really bad people. And they said, don't come here. We're telling you right now, don't interfere. We don't care. Literally said, we don't care if a little girl has been abducted. Exact words from that State Department rep. So anyway, we eventually made arrangements to go into another country and negotiate a little bit more with the kidnappers who were going to sell the little girl into prostitution, which was, by the way, was her mother was part of that whole ring. And we were negotiating in country on the phone, and just for a meeting place. We finally got them down. Believe it or not, it shows you how amateurish they were. We got them from $1 million to $5,000. Okay. And so I knew we were dealing with some amateurs. And so trying to negotiate the location on the phone, and they'd say, okay, we'll meet you here and we'll exchange money and give you the girl. And then they would call back like 5 minutes later and go, no, we've changed our mind. We're not going to do it. And this went on for like 30 minutes. And so finally I said, I'm going to just play. I'm going to play a card here and see if it works. And so they called and I said, look, here's the deal. You can keep the girl. We'll turn this over to Interpol. They'll kick your door down. You're probably going to get killed. And we'll leave it at that. Well, then I thought they would change their mind based on that. And they still didn't. So I hung up the phone and I just said, I'm going to pray about this. And I just said, God, I'm at a loss. I'm kind of like, standing at the Red Sea and something's got to open here. And God said in my head, you know how God speaks to us. He goes, I want you to call them up and say this thing to them. And I was like, okay.
So you actually heard God, and he talks to us in a still small voice in our head and in our heart, and you heard him say, what was the thing he told you to say?
Well, this one, it wasn't a still quiet. It was a loud one in my head. So I picked up the phone and I called and I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go look out your window right now. That's what God said. Tell him to go look out the window. So I said, I want you to go look out your window, thinking in my head, God, what's all this about? So you can hear the footsteps, go over, and then you hear him. He runs back and he goes, okay, senor. He goes, I will meet you. Now, I have absolutely no idea what he saw out that window to this day. But whatever God allowed him to see, it was enough for him to change his mind. And he came to the rendezvous point, exchanged money, got the little girl. It's really interesting. My guys, the team guys, were already behind the thugs, and they didn't even know it. Got the little girl, and I said, your dad has asked us to bring you home back to America. Are you ready to go home? And she was like grateful. And I just said, just hold my hand. If I pick you up and we have to run for any reason, just don't worry about it. Got her back to the embassy. This was really funny. And the guy that I had been speaking to before we went into that country was just so mad. He goes, what are you doing here? He goes, we know who you are. And I looked and I said, well, let's say little kidnapped girl. She needs a passport and that's it. And we'll leave. And he said, man, my boss is going to really be mad. And he says, stay here. And he runs upstairs and out come about 2 minutes later, 4 amazing ladies from Citizen Services who take our victim because they're going to question her and make sure everything's right, get her a passport, and they did a brilliant job. And this guy comes back down and he pulls me aside and he goes, all right. He goes, I guess everything's okay. He goes, and I'll tell you, he goes, personally, I'd have done the same thing you did. He goes, I just can't, say that officially. And I went, okay. All right. Thanks. I appreciate that. We got back to the States, got her reunited, and they had a little welcoming committee with signs, and it was just a wonderful time. But this is the thing that touched my heart. When I was walking her through the airport when we got back to the States, holding her hand, she tugged on my hand and she pulled me over to a chair. And she goes, Mr. Boss, I just want to tell you something. And she goes, if I could have another dad, I wish he were just like you. So I told her she had a wonderful dad that loved her very much and sent me to go help with this. So for those people out there, they need to understand if you want to break the heart of God, this is what you do. You damage kids. And for those people out there that are even interested in this, know that every one of those kids just wants somebody to love them. That's all they want. And the mom or the dad that they don't have, you can be that for them, and they deserve it. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, the Bible says in Malachi chapter 4 that he's going to turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children and the children's hearts back to the fathers. He said, lest I strike the earth with a curse, because when they crossed into the promised land, the first thing God had the children of Israel do was to circumcise the males that did not get circumcised in the wilderness when they came out of Egypt. Because circumcision, the Lord showed me this, Boz, was a covenant that God made with the male and what he did with his seed. And so as we close right now, we're going to say a prayer, but you know what? This is a covenant. God made a covenant with the male, that the male was supposed to be the protector. The male was where the seed came from. And it's really the males that now have to stand up and not become these, soy boys, that they're going to become true men, because I believe in men. Boz, the Lord had told me a number of years ago, he said, tell the men that they're not a pimp, a pirate, or a pawn, but a prince and a king.
Yeah.
That's what God said. He said, tell them that's who they are. And he said, tell the women you're holy, not hoes. Now, that was God telling me this. And see, the enemy tries to sexualize a culture, and it becomes pornified, and everything becomes about sex and lust. And we just become like animals, so to speak, that nothing is sacred anymore. Intimacy, sexual union was meant to be, between a man and a woman in marriage. And it's not just, and God created it. And
Right.
so right now, a lot of people don't want to talk about this, but the reason I believe, Boz, a lot of, you're not seeing as many people get married. You're seeing, not as many children. That was one of the things that Charlie Kirk did, is that he told people, listen, get married, have
Yeah.
families, have children. And his voice was very important, and they took him out. But so many more now are rising up, and they're saying, no, we're going to be good fathers. We're going to be, protectors, just like you. And Boz, as we close out today, let's put up his website again. Where can they find you at again, Boz? There it is.
Yeah, recoveryofchildren.org. It'll get you to our website, and recoveryofchildren.com will get you to our training site.
Yeah, both of those. Yeah, the links will be below too. Well, Boz, I really appreciate you coming on. You're actually in the East Coast right now doing, you're doing a training. Is that right? You're doing right now a training?
Yeah, we're doing training and we're running an operation at the same time. Believe it or not, back in Chicago, of all places, another 14-year-old disappeared like 2 days ago. So we're that same amazing strategic partner, Rodney and his group. They're actually out in the trenches, and and he just drove over. I'll be meeting with him here in about 5 minutes to talk about that case as well.
Well, as we close out today, thank you for watching. Now is the time. Please share this with as many people as you can, because this is the heart of the Father, is to rescue and find these children. And because that's what the enemy wants. Satan, the demonic realm, wants to take these children, and he wants to corrupt them, because hurt people hurt people. So oftentimes these kids get molested, and it becomes a cycle of abuse that eventually, oftentimes, they start doing things to other people as they get older. And so the cycle has to be broken, which can be. I mean, you've seen these kids that you've rescued. A lot of them have been healed and helped, and God can restore that which was broken.
Yeah, he can, and we're looking at other stuff too that people should be aware of, particularly aftercare. One of the things we just stumbled on in our research, Meri, and you'll understand this, is that trauma damages the human being at the DNA level. And so one of the missing components in aftercare, we give them love, we give them spirituality, we give them blankets, we give them, all the stuff, but we haven't gotten into repairing their DNA. There are a couple of people like Dr. Brian Thompson out of Phoenix and those guys that are just now dedicating their entire network of care towards just that one thing, helping restore the DNA to sexually abused or victims of trauma. And we're starting to see some amazing results, because we kept wondering, we thought we were doing all the right things, but yet they were going back they still had their trauma, or they were going back into the life, or whatever it may be. And now we took a serious look at, like, okay, are we looking at everything that God created in a human being? And then we all of a sudden realized, wow, look at this. And we started looking at their DNA of trauma victims versus somebody that had never been sexually traumatized. Totally different, broken up. So now we're taking it one step further and getting the DNA repaired and regenerate, so they can regenerate their body, so they don't end up like a lot of traffic victims are. Constantly their body is dying on them. They're in the hospital. It's because they've been programmed, and their body is just in their DNA. This is what they're used to being. They're used to being destroyed and killed off. And so this is what their body is still doing, is trying to die. And so what good does it do us to physically get a 7-year-old girl out of trafficking, for her to just die of physical ailments when she's 22, because her body's been programmed to just continue to die. And you can see this, if you're chained up, you're molested, you're beat every single day and starved, after a while you just want to die. And that's what gets programmed, and that's how the DNA gets damaged. And that's why we're losing so many of these kids as younger or as older adults, through just constant, their body is just shutting down. And so we're looking at a different approach now on that.
Well, it's interesting. Just as I'll tell you one story, and then we'll pray. It was years ago. I was speaking to a woman's recovery ranch down in San Diego, and I was in prayer, and God said to me, I can change their DNA. He said, where they don't need alcohol, they don't need addictions, they don't need abuse. I mean, and he told me that. He goes, I can change their DNA. So I believe that God is going to give us the ability through certain things, through prayer and who knows what, but the Holy Spirit knows how to change DNA, because he created it. He can change it. So Boz, why don't you pray as we close out today? You start and I'll finish it. Go ahead, Boz.
Thank you, Father. Thank you for creating us and putting us here on such an amazing planet, Lord. Unfortunately, things went sideways somewhere in that process, and it's called sin. And we know about it, and it's only you that can give us the strength and the wisdom and the discernment through the Holy Spirit to navigate all of those fault lines that would otherwise just stop us from doing work to save kids, or to share your word, or feed the poor, or take care of our veterans, or keep the republic free. That's all you, God, and we can do nothing. I thank you for helping us realize also, Father, at least in my life, and while so many of us think, and we're waiting around for you to show us your special plan for our life, that you don't have a special plan for our life, that we are a part of your great plan. We get ourselves out of the way and realize that, then what we ask is, just show us where we fit in to your great plan. It's in the scriptures, it's written. Let us get our ego out of the way, keep us humble, and let us realize that the very breath we have in our lungs is yours, and that our obedience to you and everything in our life is far more fulfilling than us trying to carry this load ourselves. No matter who we think we are, no matter how powerful we think we are, or what we think we can do. I thank you for this opportunity and the technology you create, Father, to just allow us to get the word out around the world. That's amazing in itself. So we ask that you bless those who are watching this show, Lord. Fulfill them in their lives, and on our side, Father, you know the intent of our heart. So what I ask is that we learn to spend more time just sitting with you, that we learn to be still and know that you're God, rather than always asking you for something. Just let us be a better friend to you.
Yes. And Lord, I also thank you for those watching, that, Lord, even as Paul prayed, that there's 10,000 instructors in Christ, but not many fathers among you. Lord, let us become mothers and fathers, Lord, of generations, Lord, not only our own families, but Lord, others that don't have fathers and mothers. And Lord, let us become, Lord, ones like when you heard that little girl say to Boz, if I could have another father, I'd want one just like you. Lord, let us be like Jesus or Father to them. Let us see Jesus in us. And Lord, as we close out this show today, I thank you, Lord, for everybody watching, that we will all want to get into the game, that we will all say, no, we can help. We can all have our eyes and ears open when we see something that's all around us. And Lord, let change the hearts of men and women that we will want to be like you, God. Bring a great move of God to our country and to our world, that we will see the greatest move of God the world has ever seen for this great awakening that is going to come on the planet, where I believe half the planet, 4 billion people, are going to come to know Jesus. That's what God has told me. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Amen. Well, listen, thank you so much, Boz, for coming on. Thanks for watching. Now is the time. Please share this with as many people as you can. Please go visit, Boz's website. And also go to my website, MeriCrowley.com. I'm going to be doing an event in Vegas coming up. We just did our 7th Open the Heavens Boz up in San Francisco, actually at the Scottish Rite Masonic Lodge in the belly of the beast. We literally drove a stake in the ground. And we shifted the atmosphere because this is a spiritual battle. We're going to be doing the next one. Tentative dates are May 1st and 2nd in Las Vegas. I'm working, I'm going to show my film. We're going to have Annie LeBaire, Kathy O'Brien. I've invited Boz. He's going to see what his schedule is. But it's not just all about trafficking. We're going to have some really great prophetic voices there, as well as patriots, as well as talking about this subject, because Vegas is one of the key cities that this happens in all over, all the time, in particular at the Super Bowl, the #1 day that people are trafficked around the world. And that's coming up on February 8th, I guess, up in San Francisco area in Santa Clara. So we need to be praying that God would stop this stuff and that we would see these kids rescued and come home. So God bless you, Boz. Say hi to your wife, Tina. Thanks for watching. The best is yet to come. See you soon.
God bless.
Thank you, Boz.